Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking our time and being part of this Sprouts LinkedIn Weekly Live. Quick intro on my side. I'm Avi. I'm the co-founder at Sprouts. And along with me, I have a stellar speaker for the day, which is Nicole. Nicole, thank you so much and for taking our time. Thrilled to introduce our guest. Nicole, she's a seasoned expert in driving revenue growth in B2B companies. She's a COO at Alleyup, who in the last 10 years have helped drive multiple companies like Adobe, ZoomInfo, Amazon Web Services, Cisco, and many more. She's going to talk a lot about what should be the GTM motion to drive 3x growth in ARR using proven SDR playbooks. First of all, Nicole, thank you so much for taking our time and talking to us. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today, answer any questions that you have and talk through things. So let's get started.
Oh, yeah, there are many of them. Curious to learn. Nicole, the first one, right? Can you start with giving us a quick overview of your professional journey? I know it has been pretty awesome. What made you join Alleyup, and how your role has evolved in last 2.5 years, and you're like past to present? What are learnings have been there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career as a marketing intern. That's what I went to school for, was marketing. Started off there and then was actually offered my first sales job in medical sales. So knocking door to door, going into actual offices, scheduling meetings with doctors. And from there, it actually transitioned me over to another company, which was medical software. And at that company, that's where I had my first SDRs assigned to me that were booking my own meetings for me. So up until that point, I was going out, getting my own leads, going after them myself, full sales cycle. And then I got wind of the SDR world and I was like, oh my gosh, I would never take another sales position without an SDR. This is amazing. Yeah. They're pumping me leads. I'm able to do what I enjoy and what I'm good at. And that's actually where I met Gabe, who's our CEO at Alleyup. So he was at Alleyup from the very beginning of Alleyup when we started up. He left for about 2 to 3 years to actually run the medical software company that I was at. And when he came back to Alleyup, that's when he actually brought me back with him. So that's what really brought me over to Alleyup, was our CEO here, Gabe. Loved working alongside him, learned so much from him over the 2 years that I had worked for him. Really gained a great relationship. And so when I reached out and said, do you have any openings at Alleyup? He said, yeah, we're looking for someone to actually head up our sales division. And so that's when I said I'd love to interview for it and meet the team and see if it's a fit. So I came over to Alleyup, started in sales, did that for about 1.5 years. And as we were growing so fast, everyone was just wearing multiple hats, right, to get us to where we wanted to be. And I really started to dive into the operations side of it, of once these deals were coming in, how did they transition over to the client side so seamlessly, and how do we make that, a really good process for our clients? And so then I got into the recruiting side of it, the head count of who we were going to assign to these projects. And that's when it made more sense for me to move over to the operations side, as we had built out our sales team at that point. And that's how I got to where I am today.
Awesome. Such an amazing journey. Started as intern and now the chief operating officer. Pretty awesome journey, Nicole, I should say. So going back to the topic, right? Our topic is 3x ARR growth, and Alleyup has witnessed 8x growth, is what I learned, right? From ZoomInfo journey, you have also seen 15 million to 130 million ARR growth, right? Please tell us more about what made you crack that GTM code that has translated into such high growth in terms of revenue and building those teams and getting net new customers. Would love to learn about your experience at ZoomInfo and also at Alleyup, where you have grown so fast, so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, whenever we take on new clients that are looking to grow, whether it's, into a new market, or maybe they're already in a market, but they want to expand that market, whatever that may look like, for us, it's really taking on these clients and learning, what does success look like to them, right? So when they come to us and they say, this is what we're looking for, this is where we want to go, this is where we've been, it's really learning about that customer as much as we can of where they're at and where they want to be. And then from there, putting a plan together and really going to the market and finding the results. And then it's what works and what doesn't work. So, when we worked with Zoom Info, over the course of the 4 years, driving revenue for them, it was really about understanding, what was the market that we wanted to go after. We wanted to target some of their top competitors and go after them to acquire them and take them over. And so it was really looking at the different segments of what they wanted, and then us putting the resources on it to go out, make the calls, and actually hear what the market was saying. And I think that's such a huge part of, any client that comes to us. It's, a lot of the times we have to figure it out with them, right? They don't necessarily know the solution. And so it's for us, it's, getting those repetition in on those cold calls, sending out those emails, and then taking the feedback of what people say to us of, when they said yes, what was that interested them and made them want to move forward? And when they say no, why is that? And then from there, doubling down. What works? Great. Let's double down on that and get more results. And what's not, let's pivot on that and go in a different direction. And so that's really what we did with Zoom Info to, go out to the market and find that success. And it's what we really look to do with every client is find what works and double down on it.
Awesome. Now you said that we work out on a plan and come to a conclusion on what is working out well. But Nicole, tell me how to, if I have to literally break it down, right? Like how to literally come to that success parameter where it is working out well. Like what are those top 3 to 4 or 5 things? Let's say I'm an SDR, I'm starting today. What are those 4 to 5 things I should focus on to make to a conclusion that, okay, all right, this is working out well, or this is not working out well? How to start?
No, it's a great question. And what's hard sometimes is it varies client to client. Like what success actually looks like for one client may be very different from another client based on the ROI that they're going to receive on what we send over to them. The biggest thing for us is consistency. So, when I'm sure you've seen on my LinkedIn, our reps are making 250 calls a day, and it's a volume play, right? So it's when we're launching into a new market or launching a new product, we have to have that type of volume to really understand the market and get the results we need. So a big thing for us is allowing the campaign to actually run. So we traditionally run 4-month to 6-month campaigns at a time. But over the course of that is really the learnings inside there. So we're benchmarking the reps of where we believe they should be based on the market that we're targeting in our experience. And then, of course, meeting with the client. We meet with our clients weekly, going over, this is what we did last week. Here is our connect rate, which how does that compare to the market? Traditionally, our connect rates are higher than where industry standard is, but we always want to make sure that's the case, because if it's not, maybe there's a market, maybe it's something with the phone numbers we're using. There's so many different things we want to troubleshoot to make sure we're having enough conversations. So, your connect rates, and you look at the conversation rates. Are they staying on the phone for more than 45 seconds, or are people hanging up right away? If they are, maybe it's a messaging that we need to pivot and adjust on. And then from there, looking at, of course, the conversions out of those conversations. How many people are saying yes? How many are saying no? And then what are the reasons behind both of those? And those are really the key KPIs that we look and break down for every project. And we do it week over week, so that as soon as we find those trends, we can then move forward based on that.
Got it. A lot of questions, a lot of following questions to that, Nicole.
I'm sure.
I'll start with, you talked about conversion rates and connect rates, right? Like, as per your experience, what is industry benchmark in terms of good connect rates? And when I talk about connect rates, let's say I'm an SDR, I'm dialing a prospect. Just for the sake of audience here understand it better. I'm an SDR, I'm dialing a prospect, and prospect has successfully connected. That's a connect rate. And let's say a prospect has said yes to come on a call and the meeting is booked. That is a conversion rate, just for simple understanding. So Nicole, as per in your experience, right, what is best in class connect rate and best in class conversion rate? I'm pretty sure it depends from industry to industry, but at a broad level, we want to know your thoughts and numbers out here.
Yeah. So industry standard for connect rate right now in the US market is about 5%. 2 to 5% is what
Okay.
most companies are targeting.
Mhm.
Internally, we target a minimum of an 8% on our projects. So we do that with various different ways. Of course, the dialers that we use, switching phone numbers, different things that you have to do to consistently keep a connect rate healthy. So we're consistently targeting anywhere from 8 to 12 is where we would say is our internal benchmark, because we always want to be above industry standard.
Of
But
course.
a good solid connect rate is above 5%.
Got it. Got it. And how about the conversion rate
Yeah.
once the connect is done?
Yeah, so there's two metrics to get to conversion. So first we look at
Got it.
conversation. So if you look at out of how many connects you had, how many turn into a true conversation and last on the phone for over 45 seconds. Industry benchmark is about 20%. And we look to target for our reps, we want them above a 30 to 35% conversation rate. So out of every connect, if they can have a true conversation with 35% of those, that'll yield them enough combos to then convert out. And then when you look at conversion rates of actually booking that meeting, you really want to be above 10% of those. And so internally, we benchmark to target at least 20 once our rep is fully ramped and healthy in conversation. They understand the program, their prospects are being brought through the pipeline correctly.
Mhm.
And so those are like the benchmarks that we go off of.
Got it. Got it. Pretty high standards.
Yeah.
I think pretty everyone out there, if you're not getting these kind of healthy connect rates and conversion rates, definitely there is a lot of work which needs to be done. Nicole, one very interesting uh, thing which I came across before
Yeah.
doing this LinkedIn Live was Alloop's Ultimate Assist is one product which piqued my interest a lot, and you offer a product which is certified SDR who performs, let's say, 250 calls a day, right? That is a big claim, right? Like making 250 calls. It's a pretty decent claim. I might
Yeah.
be wrong here, but yeah, no, that's really interesting, and that has like piqued my interest. Please
Yeah.
tell us more about it. How do you guys do that, and what are the results like? Like, okay, we are making calls, but how are the results in US, in the Europe, or rest of the world? Would I know there are like multiple questions in one single question, but I'm really curious to learn how you think about it.
Absolutely. So, our Ultimate Assist program, we target different things inside of it. Of course, putting a rep on it that's, proven successful. We provide the data for the program itself. So, you just tell us who you want us to target, and we'll go ahead and source that data. We provide the full technology stack for the reps to be able to hit their metrics and KPIs, and then the reporting and management behind these reps. So it's really our full service program of our goal is to send you warm and hot leads. With our dialers of 250 calls a day, we ramped up to that because when you looked at the market, you have to make that type of volume to get that many people on the phone to be able to have the conversion rate you're looking for. 5 years ago, we were making 125 to 150 dials a day per rep, and it
Hmm.
just wasn't yielding the conversations to give them enough at bats. And so it's always finding that number. I have some projects where reps can make 100 dials a day and be able to hit their KPIs with no problem on meetings that we need to push forward to the client. And I have some that really need to be more in the 300 to 400 range to have enough at bats based on the market that they go after. So it really depends on that market of finding that sweet spot and finding their batting average of how many calls do I need to make. And that can also vary rep to rep. If I just
Yep.
start today, I may need to make 500 dials to get my one meeting across the board, where a seasoned rep who's been here for 3 years now, they can maybe do it in 150 to 200 and get that set. So it's really learning your own batting average. But a big push behind us getting to that 250 has been our dialer that we use. We do use a parallel dialer. We use Orem. They're a
Okay.
huge partner of ours. We did supply SDRs for them in the past and work with them today on a really strong partnership. So it's one we're very proud of. But their dialer has been godsend, and it definitely helps us get to the metrics that we need to.
Okay. Now I know how that 250 number has come up. So
Yes.
thanks for that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Nicole, I had let me take a step back, right? Like while we have talked about a lot of nitty gritties of SDRs, conversion rates, connect rates, and everything. But if I'm a leader, an SDR leader or a demand generation leader, how differently I have to curate 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and let's say 10 plus million ARR journeys. How I have to, come up with that GTM playbook. That's
Yep.
first part of the question.
Yeah.
And it would be great if you can give us some real time examples so that we can go back and correlate it in a much better fashion, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure, right? Like 0 to 1, there is a different tactics you play. 1 to 10, there is a different tactics. 10 plus, possibly you'll have a lot of money to spend on tools and everything. That's why, there is a lot of shift change in how
Yep.
you behave. So would love to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, we take on clients in all different phases of, where they're at. Some come to us, they've never done this before, and they are playing in that 0 to 10. They're, still founder-led sales, running the demos themselves. Then there's some come to us who they've proven they've done this before. They have 30, 40 SDRs internally, but they want to look to run our reps alongside of them. And so they're definitely in a different phase of this outbound prospecting. So really a big thing for us is when you look at segmenting them out, when you're looking at that 0 to 10, that's where a lot of companies are just trying to find their product market fit and trying to
Yeah.
understand what market do I play in. So that is a very high volume play. And we also know that we may pivot a lot during our 6 month campaign. We may start off in one space thinking that this is the way to go. And then all of a sudden, 3 months in, say, based on these conversations, they're actually leading us and telling us we're actually going after the wrong persona inside of these companies. We thought this was the title we should be targeting. It's actually this. And so pivoting and really finding that fit. And I think that's the biggest thing with those companies that fall in that 0 to 10 is helping them find where they belong in the market. And so it's really focused on the learnings that come out of that and setting those expectations up front is, we may not launch with 20, 40 meetings set a month. We may need to find what our sweet spot is. And we may also think it's this, but learn it may be a different vertical. So that's really the biggest thing inside of that 0 to 10 is for us is just being able to pivot with the client and gathering as much learnings as we can. Then when you look at that 10 to 20, that's where you've, found your groove and you're understanding, okay, this is where I play. This is where we want to see results out of. So really doubling down on what has worked, and going after that market segment that you've found to work well. And now you have a strong campaign and strategy moving forward and working on that. And then above that, when you now have the money to keep going and investing, it's doubling down. That's usually where we see our team sizes start to double, triple. And now, okay, we started with 2 reps on this. We now want to pump up to 10 because we're seeing the volume. We know our market. We know where we want to be. And let's double down and get as much out of it as we can. So that's usually the pattern that we see internally is upfront pivoting a lot. Really,
Yep.
phase 2 is finding your groove, staying steady. And then 3 is expanding and growing the team.
Awesome. Awesome. Such a neat way to, compartmentalize that.
Yeah.
Uh, Nicole, had a very fundamental question. Let's say I'm a company which is in, for the sake of this discussion, let's say 1 to 10 million in ARR, and there is a company B which is in 10 to 20 million revenue in ARR. What is the productivity which you see that is very optimal for an SDR? Right? I know that it depends on uh, what kind of customers they are targeting. But let's say if I'm an SDR who falls under early stage company, I'm clocking let's say 2 to 3 million. What is like average meetings per SDR? You see that they are considered as a good SDRs,
Yep.
and if they are in slightly the PMF is established, they have figured out their ICP, they are ramping up. What is the productivity per SDR? Like per SDR, how many meetings in 10 to 20 range or above, and
Yep.
less than 10 million ARR?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a hard question because it,
Yep.
it definitely can vary industry to industry.
Yes.
Um, in the US, the standard SDR is setting anywhere from last time I checked the statistic, it was about 10 to 12 meetings a month completed.
Okay.
So that's a good starting point to benchmark and say, okay, if that's the average going after the US market, making cold calls is in that 10 to 12 range. Of course, you'll always have outliers to that. But if you start as that as your benchmark and then build off of it, that's
Mm-hmm.
a good place to be. So whenever we're starting, if you look at companies in those like 0 to 10, we always say we want to get to that 12 range. That's our goal. Once we know our product fit and we know that the rep is solid and our messaging is solid, the market is good, and the product is a fit there. That's our goal. But of course, you want to always ramp to that. So we always look at, if your end goal is at 12 or higher, you want to say, okay, in month one, what is realistic? We're probably looking at about a 30 to 40% of that. Month two, you're looking at about a 40 to 60% of that. Month three, and that's if you stay on course of plan, right? If we say in the month two, we're going to completely pivot our campaign and go after a totally different market, you
Yeah.
sometimes set that back. But we always go off of, if our benchmark is at 12, at least we believe to start, and that's where we're going to learn off of. Looking at it that way of saying, okay, let's start with that, 30 to 40 range month one. Month two, we're looking at, 40 to 60. Month three, 60 to 85, and then ramping that way. And then
Mm-hmm.
really by month two and month three, you're going to know, what, my project is actually the way that it should forecast out is the rep should probably be doing 20 to 40 a month is maybe more of the range. Or we have some clients where the range ends up being 4 to 6 and they're doing backflips because the ARR on their programs and their ACV is very high. So they see the return very quickly. So it really depends, but we have to find that number with the client and then of course benchmark our reps off of that.
Got it. Got it. And Nicole, a follow on to that is in your recent post, you mentioned that how should a day in the life of SDR should look like, and you mentioned about some power ups and power downs. Would love to know more about like what does that mean, and how do you envision, let's say if I'm an A plus SDR, how should I construct my day? Would love to
Yeah.
know about. Yeah.
So sometimes a remote environment can be hard, right? Especially doing a role like this. It's very repetitive. You get a lot of no's before you get that yes. And so it's how do you encourage your rep to stay engaged, stay motivated, keep going after it day after day when they may be working in, their a room by themselves and not feeling that motivation. And so that's always been a huge part of alley oop is making sure that our reps do have a motivating environment, that they do feel like they're not isolated. They still are a part of a team, even though they're remote. And so that's where a lot of this originated from. So our power ups, our reps do power up every morning on a live camera video. They record, 30-second clip of really benchmarking their wins from the day before and what their goal is for that day. So
Wow.
it's really setting the standard from what they want to accomplish from the very beginning of their day of, what, this is where I'm at 70% to quota so far this month. I have 2 meetings that are set to go off today. If they complete, I'm going to be at 85% to my quota. My goal is to set 2 meetings today. And I hope everybody has a great day, right? And, sometimes you'll see some funny things, they'll put a funny hat on and they make jokes of it and engage each other. But
Yeah.
those are all things that it's really the power up was designed to hold them accountable and let them set their standard of what they're
Yeah.
looking to accomplish that day. A big thing for us is we do run sales floors, virtual sales floors through our dialer. So our reps do get to call alongside each other throughout the day, which does help with that environment. You could see, when somebody gets a set, one of the teams has cowbells that they all ring, cheering each other on. So it's a huge part of our culture is to make sure that yes, it's a competitive role and you want to make sure you're performing and at the top of the leaderboard, but you have a team that is always backing you and really rooting for you. And then at the end of their day, they power down with what they accomplished. So they report in, I made this amount of dials today. I had this amount of conversations. This is the results that it yielded. This is where I'm at and ending my day. And then if there's any support that they need, so they can tag in their manager, hey, I'm running low on contacts. I need more loaded for me to go after. Or I'm hearing this consistently. Can we please set up a meeting for this week where we can handle this objection and make sure I'm doing it the right way? So it really just sets the standard up front of what they're going to be accountable for. And then at the end of the day, making sure that they accomplished what they wanted to.
Got it. Amazing concept. I'm not sure about audience out there, but I'm sure that I'm going to pass on that to our marketing head
Yeah.
to implement this power ups and power downs concept. Looks very exciting, and I think it's a pretty good way to, like motivate team and ask them to go out and talk about how their performance has been. Loved
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nicole, a follow on to that, right? Like, we talked about overall SDRs and their how the manager should look like, how how you should come up with a GTM strategy and everything. But how do you measure a success for a GTM motion or an SDR motion, right? What are the key KPIs which we should track? If I have to, just quickly double click and add more to it, like what are the leading indicators and what are the lagging indicators one should focus on to measure the success of SDR function or overall GTM function? Like, do they own pipeline? Because there are so many questions. Like somebody says that, hey, what they use, they own sales, they own pipeline, they own number of dials. But would love to know your thought in terms of what you think as a leading indicator and the lagging indicator, input and output KPIs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, for an SDR perspective, their role is to build top of funnel pipeline,
Yep.
lead generation. And two things we focus on here are going to be hot leads and warm leads. So, you have your hot leads, which are within your ICP, they're interested in learning more. They've agreed to a meeting within 2 weeks and they're ready to hop on and be engaged by the prospect. So, we book that hot lead. And then we have our warm leads, which are companies who are and prospects who are, yes, I'm interested. I am the right persona for this. I would be the decision maker, but I'm not ready to meet right now. I'm more on a 2-month time frame. And so we capture those warm leads and pass them to our clients to say, hey, these are people who are engaged, but they're not ready yet. And so your marketing team may want to engage them on the back end, start enrolling them in some campaigns so that they're getting additional touch points. Or maybe your AEs want to send a note over that's more personalized to engage them so that we can move them into that hot bucket. So those are really two big endpoints that we look at of, what hot leads can we generate for this client and what warm leads. And then it's backing the numbers into those to achieve
Okay.
the ROI that client is looking for. So we'll work really closely with every client to say, what does good look like for you? If we're sending you over 20 hot leads and 30 warm leads a month, is that enough? Does that yield the ROI to continue being our partner? Is that enough for your team to create enough opportunity to have a win rate that makes this make sense? And so it's really finding that number with each client because it's so different and then working our way into it. So then once we know this is the number we have to achieve to make this work and work with our partner, then it's building the KPIs behind it of how many emails do we have to send? Who do we have to engage to? How many calls do we have to make? What does our conversation rate have to be so that we can pump enough volume out to these clients so that the numbers back themselves in the right way? But it can vary so much client to client, but it's really finding that number with them over the course of the 6-month campaign so that we know what success looks like. And then of course, put our goal to hit that.
Got it. And Nicole, a follow on to that is, uh, what are the key challenges usually SDR face if they're not hitting the goals, right? Like if these are like top 3 or top 5 challenges, if we help them enable this, get rid of these challenges, they can hit their goals much faster, better. So what would love to understand, what are those 4 to 5 challenges which SDRs usually face while if they're not hitting the quotas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say like the number one thing is of course their connect rate, right? We have projects that launch where a rep says I've made, 300 dials today and I spoke with one person. And so of course that's over a long-term period of time cannot work and doesn't make sense. So it's of course finding that right connect rate to make sure that they're having enough connects to even have a chance at pitching and getting that meeting. So of course, you always want to look at the actual data itself. Is the data set we're going after, are the numbers correct? Are we getting the wrong person on the other line? Are people picking up the phone? So, data can always be a struggle there that you always have to make sure you're giving your reps the best, data that they can to go after and target. Of course, the biggest thing too is going to be objection handling. So we run objection handling training with our reps weekly. Where we go through the top 10 objections that you're going to hear. I'm not the right person. I'm not interested. I'm already in a contract with somebody else, right? So you go over those objections, and they have to be seasoned on being able to handle those. And how do you convert meetings out of hearing those objections? So a huge thing is making sure that our rep knows how to handle when they hear, and most of the time it does fall into those 10. People may phrase it a different way, but it in the back end, we know which one it does fall into them. And then being able to handle that. So making sure your rep can handle objections.
Okay.
And then, of course, your messaging, right, is really that third component, making sure that the messaging is solid to the market you're going after. And we may have to pivot that a few times. And we'll find that in the reporting right away of, hey, we're getting these people on the line, they're sticking on, but this is where they're hanging up and saying they're not interested. And that's where we want to pivot. So those are really, I would say, when you look at, make sure you have the right data, your rep is solid and knows how to pivot through the conversations they're having. And then, of course, making sure your market is correct and your technology can back it. That's really where you start off a strong campaign.
Got it. Got it. Learned so much today, Nicole. I think we are about time right now. But before we drop off, one last question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite GTM tool, like market tool?
So we have a few technology partners that we, work with right now that are great partners of ours. Orem, I know I mentioned, is our dialer that we absolutely love. Apollo runs our email cadences. So I would say both of those right now, and our different data providers that we work with, Apollo, Sales Intel, Zoom, those are really important for us. So I would say all of those in our tech stack really
Okay.
just help us get to where we are.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Nicole. Thank you so much for taking our time and talking to us. I have enjoyed this conversation and I'm walking away with a lot of learnings, which I'm going to go back and implement in my team. I'm pretty sure everyone out there have equally learned a lot. And yeah, can't thank you enough, Nicole, for taking our time and talking to us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great, and hope everybody has a great day.